Welcome to Embracing the Fight, the podcast where we have real conversations about real struggles and, more importantly, real solutions. Hi, I'm Erica Lamar, your digital creator and host. But before we get into today's episode, I hope that you have taken the time to click like, click subscribe, and click share to Embracing the Fight. Well, if you haven't, you can find me on several social media outlets: Instagram, Facebook, X, Blue Sky, and YouTube. Now, the only difference is on Instagram, you would have to find me as Embracing the Fight underscore. Now, that's because somebody beat me to the handle on Instagram. So that's the only difference. And also, if you would like to be a guest on Embracing the Fight, please reach out to me at operations at diversitydesigned.com. Again, that's operations at diversitydesigned.com. Or you can reach out to me on any of the previously mentioned social media platforms. Now that I've gotten the business of everything out of the way, today's episode is one that truly hits close to home for so many people. Whether you're an employee, a leader, an entrepreneur, or a caregiver, we're going to talk today about employee burnout, what it is, how to recognize it, and what we can actually do about it. You do not have to suffer in silence. You do not have to fight with employee burnout. So, burnout isn't just about being tired, it's not just having a bad week at work. Burnout is what happens when prolonged stress goes unaddressed, when expectations outweigh capacity, and then you start to feel unseen, unsupported, and overwhelmed. And all of those things will come crashing in all at the same time. So, if you've ever said, I'm exhausted and rest doesn't help, or you know what, I dread work even though I used to love it, or I just feel numb, disconnected, disassociated, or irritable all the time. If you said that, this episode is just for you. So let's get into it. What exactly is employee burnout? Employee burnout is defined as a state of chronic physical, emotional, and mental exhaustion caused by long-term workplace stress. The WHO, or the World Health Organization, recognizes burnout as an occupational phenomenon, not a personal failure. So when you're going through burnout, you're not doing anything wrong. It's actually quite the opposite. You're doing everything you think you can do, but you're experiencing burnout because of that. And it typically shows up, in three main ways. One being exhaustion, where you're feeling drained, depleted, and you have, no way to really recover any energy. Like if you eat something, exercise, it doesn't do anything. Cynicism or detachment, when you're constantly feeling negative, disconnected, or resentful toward work. Then you notice that your effectiveness starts to reduce. You feel like nothing you do matters or makes a difference. And then this is the key point that I really want you to hear. Burnout isn't a weakness, it's a signal. It's your body and your mind that's letting you know that something that's going on is unsustainable and we are about to break down. So there are several common causes of employee burnout because burnout doesn't happen overnight. It builds over time. So let's talk openly and honestly about some of the most common causes. The excessive workload, too much work, not enough time, constant deadlines, and no margin for rest. And everyone is coming to you for everything because you're good at what you do. Lack of control, feeling like you have no say in your schedule, your workload of decision making. Everything is just coming at you, and you can't schedule it, you can't plan. Then there's the unclear expectations, not knowing what success looks like, constantly moving goalposts or conflicting demands. Imagine never having a succession planning discussion with their boss, and they always say, "Oh, you're doing fine. We're just going to add more work to it." It's not good. Inadequate support, hmm, poor leadership, lack of feedback, or feeling like you're on your own. I've dealt with that. And then outside of it, you have work-life imbalance. When work consumes your identity, your time, and your energy, leaving absolutely nothing left for just you. Then there's a time when you experience values that mismatch. When what you're asked to do conflicts with your morals, ethics, or purpose. Now, if any of these things sound familiar, just know you're not alone. You are not the only one who is experiencing, these symptoms of burnout. So how do you notice them? How do you know that it's not, you just learning something new and putting too much pressure on yourself? Well, think about it like this. Burnout shows up differently for everyone, but you must know that there are patterns. So let's break them down. Let's look at the emotional symptoms first. You start to notice yourself to be irritable or impatient when people ask you questions. You start experiencing anxiety or depression. You feel like that closed in feeling, you feel helpless and trapped. And you experience emotional numbness. And all of a sudden, you hit rock bottom, you lose your motivation and your passion. Then you start to feel it physically. You deal with chronic fatigue. You start getting headaches or migraines, that muscle tension, in your neck. You don't sleep well at night. There's lots of sleep disturbances, and you're constantly sick. You're dealing with illness after illness, and you don't see anything on the other side of it. You don't see any relief. Then there are also mental and cognitive symptoms. You start experiencing brain fog. You just can't remember. You have a difficulty concentrating. You deal with forgetfulness, indecisiveness, and then you start attacking yourself with that negative self-talk. So then you start to notice behavioral symptoms. You start wanting to be by yourself. You withdraw from your coworkers. You find yourself to be more and more days where you don't, come to work. Your absenteeism increasing. You start to procrastinate. You start to overwork to prove your worth. And then you start using other things to cope, like alcohol and food, to make the pain go away. So, what I need you to do is ask yourself this powerful question: are you functioning or are you thriving? Because burnout often hides behind productivity. So it looks like you're putting out, a whole lot, but what's the quality of what you're putting out and how do you feel once it's done? So what is the cost of ignoring burnout? Because if you ignore it, it's something that will fester until it finally bursts open. So when burnout goes unaddressed, the consequences are and can be very, very serious. So for individuals, you start to notice declining health and physical health. You have an increased risk of anxiety, depression, and chronic illness. Then you carry this stuff home to your significant other, to your children, and your relationships start to become strained. And then look at these big organizations. For organizations, it's easier, to point out. When there's employee burnout, there is a high turnover rate. There's low morale. Your productivity is reduced. And then you notice that that bill that's coming for healthcare and disability, that cost is going up, up, up. So burnout doesn't just affect the person as an individual, it affects the entire ecosystem. So what can you do? As an employee, what solutions are there to employee burnout? So let's start with, what can you do as an employee? Let's talk solution. First, call a thing a thing. You have to acknowledge it. You have to name what's happening. You can't fix what you refuse to recognize. You think about it. People call illnesses something all the time, but until you get that diagnosis, you can't treat it. You have to set boundaries. A lot of people take work home. You have to define your work hours. You have to limit your after hours communication for work. Now, sure, you might be a CEO or whatever, but think about it. If something happens to you, they're going to pick someone else to do it the very next day. So you got to learn to say no without any guilt. And then after you're able to do that, reclaim some rest. Think about it. Rest isn't a reward. It's a requirement. You always hear people say, I'll sleep when I die. No, you need sleep now. You need rest so your mind and body can reset. Then the next thing you need to do is seek support. A lot of people shy away from mental health counseling, but you need to talk to a trusted person. And then if you're an employee, you can use your employee assistance programs because there are programs out there that help you with employee burnout. So you can seek, professional counseling for all of it, but you can do it through your employee health program. And then what you need to do is truly reassess your priorities. Sit down and determine, ask yourself, say, what is it that's truly draining me? And what things are non-negotiable? What needs to truly change? And once you ask yourself those questions, truly listen to the answer. Because if you don't, how do you get to the solution? So then, from a organizational or from a leadership point of view, what can they do? So, sure, burnout is something employees experience, but burnout prevention is a leadership responsibility. So, what organizations can do, they can normalize those mental health conversations like we try to do here on Embracing the Fight. They can provide flexible work options, 4 days on, 3 days off, the 40-hour work week in 4 days instead of, spreading it out. Ensuring manageable workloads, really looking at what you're giving people instead of just saying, oh, I know they can handle it. Train leaders to recognize burnout because a lot of people just, brush it off as, oh, they have an attitude today. Well, no, they're really reacting to this employee burnout. And then encourage time off and respect it because you got some people that will work and work and work and work, and then they'll sell their vacation back. They are getting burned out. Think about it. Healthy employees create healthy organizations. So if you take absolutely nothing else from today's episode, I want you to remember and focus on this next statement. You are not broken. You're responding to pressure. Employee burnout it's not the end. It's an invitation to change. You just have to be able to recognize it, express it, and speak it. You can't just keep stuffing it in and hoping that it gets better because it's not going to do that. So if this episode resonated with you, please, please, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you're ready to start addressing burnout, personally or professionally, believe me, this is a fight worth embracing. So thank you all for taking a moment out to listen to this episode of Embracing the Fight. Until next time, I need you to take care of yourself because you matter, and employee burnout will no longer be your story. And as always, thank you all and have an absolute amazing day.